I'm so excited to be here and also be back from our vacation that we took from doing podcasts for the month of July. We're here today with Christina Caldwell. And Christina, so excited to hear about your story, your retreats, some of the things that you're doing and some of the benefits that can have. But with that said, would love to hear a little bit more from you about, who is Christina and, what led you to where you are today?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you, all of our friends tuning in after this beautiful July break. We are so thankful for you. My name is Christina Caldwell. I'm a yoga instructor. I own my own yoga business, but I'm also a high school educator. I am an English and drama teacher. So clearly, my love of teaching and sharing love and light is bountiful. It's in all of my work, whether in person with my high school students or all of my yoga clients. I am a former dancer and theater kid.
Yep.
So I like to add a little flair and sparkle and shimmy as I teach yoga.
I love it.
Yeah, I do teach a really good juicy restorative class, but my fan favorite class is a yoga sculpt class, which is very high rep, high intensity. We add weights to our yoga practice, and it's a full on club and party and yoga,
I
which
love it.
which pretty much embodies my inner light.
Yep.
But my purpose as a yoga instructor is to live bright and share that light. So I hope that by living brightly, that others can continue to share light and tap into the stream of well-being, no matter what is going on in our external world, because that force is constant deep within. Um,
Yep.
I started my yoga business in the pandemic by accident.
Great. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But I got my yoga certification before that. I lived in Hawaii in 2017 and did my yoga certification there. My original 200 hours and my yoga sculpt certification, but now I'm 500 hours certified. I just finished my 300 hour this past year. That one took me 2 years to complete. It was really intense, but really life altering. And so I teach online on my own platform. I also teach at 2 local studios for any friends listening in the Northeast, if you're in Jersey. And I teach yoga retreats all over the world. So my first retreat I ever taught was in Croatia on a yacht, and we sailed the Adriatic coast.
Yeah.
My second retreat was supposed to be in Italy, but it was summer 2020. So y'all know what happened to that one.
Yep.
And then womp womp. Last summer, I led a retreat in Kenya on safari. And this summer, I just got back. I'm fresh out of Costa Rica. I led a surf and yoga retreat there in the Nicoya Peninsula. And it was just so magical and joyful. And so I'm just riding that high of sharing that light with all of my friends who traveled with me and friends who I did know and didn't know, and I'm now very close friends with.
I think that is so incredible. And just, I'd love to even dive into just, well, what does yoga mean to you? And then would love to hear more too about, you know, there are so many different kinds of yoga. And I want to talk about, because when I first started, I remember hearing about yoga and I didn't get it. I didn't get the whole mind body connection with it. And I was like, I just want to work out. Like, I don't understand it. So like, can you touch on that a little bit? Well,
Sure,
first start with what it means to you
of
and what
course.
draws you to it and teach.
Um, what yoga means to me, yoga is oneness. The word yoga actually means yoke. So like coming together. But for me, yoga is finding duality of that boundless self that you have deep within,
Yep.
but with the energy in your environment.
Mhm.
Finding that duality of your inner essence and light and the magical connection around you, whether that's in nature, with other people, with with your environment, with your surroundings, and being able to trust that inner potential to eventually work your way up to enlightenment.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I first started practicing yoga, I was the same. I was like, I'm here as a treat to stretch after I like was powerlifting at the gym or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yep.
so for a long time, that's what yoga was to me. And that's okay too. You know, yoga finds you when you need it most,
Mhm.
in whatever shape and form. And of course, on this side of the globe, yoga is very physical. You know, we focus more on the physicality, which is the asana, the physical practice. But there's so many different aspects of yoga when you start diving deep into the 8 limb paths, into your
Yep.
spirituality, into your lifestyle. And I always tell anyone who finds yoga, 'cause sometimes that can be intimidating. It was really intimidating for me at first. You know, I felt like I wasn't fitting the like granola mold stereotype of what you needed to fit. And for the longest time, I only ever took yoga at a gym studio. Like I was scared to go to a yoga studio when I
Yeah.
first started practicing yoga because it's intimidating, you know? But a lot of that is ego based. So learning to let go of that and understand there's like no mold you have to fit when you practice yoga. You know, you
Yep.
don't have to touch your toes, you don't have to look a certain way. All shapes, sizes, genders are welcome as long as you're there to show up as whatever your best self is that day, because that can change day by day.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was like you too, super intimidated. I was like, I'm not flexible. So like, I feel like an idiot. I need to go. If I went, go super early, get in the back and be like, I can't do half these positions. And
Right. I
so,
know. And I feel for everyone who feels that way because I'm like, no, I swear I was that person for a long time too. So
yeah.
if yoga is calling to you, friends, I invite you to try it out, you know, whether you're doing it online or a private session or at a gym or at a studio, or maybe you're going on a yoga retreat for the first time because you just want to figure out what yoga is. There's a reason yoga comes to us when it does. So let go of those self-doubts and fears like we do in all things, and dive in, see what comes up. I taught 2 classes this morning, and I said multiple times, like, let yourself be messy. Like it's okay to unravel. There's no perfection here in the posture. And so that can translate off our mats too. You know, when we unravel, when we are in the mess, what do we uncover about ourselves to learn, to grow, and to trust that like we've been here all along, no matter what's getting thrown at us in our face.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny too, because I think so many people now these days are just so disassociated from their bodies. And so getting into yoga can help that connection. And again, I didn't understand that until all of a sudden it was like, okay, breathe into the positions and or just breathe by being in that space. And it's amazing what can come up. And
Absolutely. And the
yeah.
thing is, though, how many times have you heard a yoga instructor say, just breathe? And you're like, oh, are you kidding me? That's like the worst thing you could say right now. But then you realize you're holding your breath and you're like, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm holding my breath more because she said to breathe and they said to breathe and I'm still holding my breath. So I
Yep.
like to think of, I always say, think of your breath as a companion. Like
Mhm.
your breath is your friend. Your
Yep.
breath is going to be what opens up those sticky, heavy areas, not just of your body, but also of of your thought process and your emotions and your well-being at that time. And if you think of your breath as a friend, as a companion, then you're never truly alone because you always have that life force guiding you through, even when it gets really difficult and you're in the muck,
Yep.
and like sometimes there's life is throwing a shit storm at you, right? And you're just like, but wait, my breath is my companion.
Yes.
Breathe. And I'm gonna
Yep.
I give myself a little space before I take action here.
Yes, 100%. And can you touch on too some of the different kinds of yoga? Because like you mentioned restorative, which I'm a major big fan of.
Yes, air high five. Me too.
Yes, I love it. But yeah, can you touch on some of the different types of yoga? Because I think different kinds might resonate with different people, and it's just not, and then what should people be looking for in a class that
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's so many different modalities of yoga, and this could be like a whole nother 2 hour
like
podcast, which I won't make
yeah,
it that long.
yes.
So I'll make this very like streamlined intro to yoga, and thinking of what you would normally see at like a studio or for a drop-in or at a gym. So obviously there's restorative yoga. So for our friends who are looking to unwind, to de-stress, to hold postures a little longer, but in a way where you get to use props and be really held up and supportive, so that the stretch isn't necessarily that intense. It's more like loving and compassionate. That's my husband's favorite form of yoga as well.
Yep.
And it's a slower flow. It's like
Yeah.
it depending on the instructor, it might be more of a slow flow, or it might be more of like a juicy restorative, hold postures longer and build like a prop fort around you. So you could be like on your back, like supine position in an easy twist with like a
Yep.
pillow or a block in between your legs and a blanket and maybe a towel over your eyes. And it's just so lovely.
Yes.
There's yin yoga, which I think a lot of people sometimes confuse the two because you're in postures longer too, but the focus there is more on your fascial tissue, and it's more on breathing into the discomfort of being in postures for a long time. Sometimes you use props too in yin, but a lot of times you might go into a yin class and there's not as much cueing for props because we're getting into those juicy positions. So you could be in like a half pigeon for anywhere from like 2 to 6 minutes, depending on the
Oh,
instructor. Yeah.
yeah.
I love me some yin. It's hard to find yin in person sometimes, at least in my area. So when I find it, I get really excited and take. There's power yoga and vinyasa, which are very similar. So vinyasa means to place in a special way. And so if you go to like a power vinyasa class, you'll hear something called chaturanga. You'll have a lot of chaturangas. A chaturanga is like a high to low plank where you flow from an up dog or a cobra into a down dog.
Mhm.
And the sequence changes all the time. It's like not the same sequence every time. So
Yep.
sometimes people love that because they're like, oh my God, I get so bored in like a Bikram class, which we'll talk about in a second. But some people are intimidated by it because they're like, oh my God, I just got to the posture. Now you're on to the next thing. I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying. So my
Yep.
suggestion, if you're new to a power yoga class or a power vinyasa class, and you want to like be able to follow along, like sit in a back row. I was gonna say back corner, and I just said backer.
A
So in the
backer.
back corner, back row, so that you can have your peripherals out to see what the people are doing in the front of the room.
Yep. I had to
And
adjust in those classes too. Like I've been able to keep up, but then had a back injury and couldn't even do like the downward to upward dog and stuff like that. So I just held like a plank and
yeah, just keep it.
kind
Totally.
of modified. It's
That's
like,
what I like about yoga too, is like, you know, your body best. The yoga instructor is your guide and your agent, but you have to listen to your body. So if you have an injury, you have any pain, like back off, and there's always another option. You can always modify, like holding a high plank or skipping a chaturanga and just pausing in a child's pose, or pausing in a sphinx if that feels okay on your low back. You know, there's always a place. It's not like you have to do every pose.
no.
Bikram is in a hot studio. Oh, and power and vinyasa, sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're not. It depends on the studio if it's hot yoga or not. Bikram is the same sequence every time, and focuses more on like lengthening and flexibility, and it's really spicy and hot. So if you really like to like melt and drip when you get your yoga on, that is the place for you. And it is the same sequence every time. So if you like knowing what you're getting into, that is
Yep.
a good place to start, especially if you're looking for a little fire and a little heat.
Yeah.
There's so many other types. I feel like I'm missing, like, oh, there's hatha, there's kundalini. Hatha yoga is going to be more like slow paced, like a little slower than vinyasa, but faster than a restorative class.
Okay.
Think of that as more like a slow flow. Kundalini has like a lot of repetitive movements and mantras, like that you can either, sometimes they'll be like actual singing in a Kundalini class or chanting. Not always. It depends on where you go and who the instructor is. But I love when I can find a Kundalini class as a former dancer, because I love the like repetitive movements, and they focus a lot on aligning the chakras and like moving the energy of your body. So sometimes I like to throw some Kundalini moves in like a yoga sculpt just for fun. But and that is like not even the half of it, but that's like very intro to what you might see on a schedule. But if you can find like an acro yoga or an aerial yoga class, and you've always wanted to be in the circus, then take that class, because they're so fun. It's so fun to do partner work, or super fun to be in the silks and get upside down. It feels so good on your spine.
I have not tried those yet, but I have seen people. I'm not that coordinated, so
You'd be surprised though, because they like the way they teach the sequences in those class. And a lot of times you have to do an intro course before you're allowed. It's not even a course. Like it might be a few classes, a basic one before you can just do a drop in, but they really set you up for success so that you feel good when you're in there. Like, and honestly, in the silks class, I feel like the silks do half the work for you. You don't even have to be coordinated. It's like, I'm going to hang and surrender to that. This strap of fabric is going to hold me up.
That's so great.
Yeah.
How do you talk about yoga to students? Because I feel like, it's so important to be connected with your body and learn that. And I just think that's so amazing that you are a teacher and then like kind of started into yoga.
Thank you. Yeah. So when you say students, do you mean my yoga students or my actual students?
But your
like
actual students.
Oh yeah.
Students.
It's funny because since I've been teaching high school for 17 years, and since becoming a yoga instructor, the way I teach is so different. I do a lot of mindfulness check-ins with my students, even if they're on the go, on the fly. In education, we call that SEL, social emotional learning. But it's funny because I've been doing that before. It was a buzzword, just because as a yoga instructor, I'm like, oh, I want to check in with your mental well-being. So I do little things on the fly. Like on Mondays and Fridays, I do what I call a state of your state check-in. And I'll change the theme, the topic. And it's like a real quick rapid fire elevator pitch. How are you feeling today, in the form of a blank? I start off with colors and numbers, but what's fun about high school students, teenagers will come up with the wackiest topics. Cause then after that, I let them pick. Like one morning, my honors English class, they were like, let's share how we're feeling in the form of a potato. I was like, what does that mean? They're like, like how you would cook a potato. And I was like, I love that. So who was a hash brown? Who was soggy cheese fries? Who was mashed potato? Who was like sriracha chips? Like, and they were so, honestly, that was probably our best day of the year, because I didn't want to talk about chip products.
100%.
But it's so nice, because if you ask a 16-year-old how they're doing, they're going to be like, fine, good. And then they're going to like pull up TikTok. So so it's such a great way to like engage them and trick them into talking about how they're feeling without them realizing it. And then it gets to the point where if I forget on a Monday or Friday, they're like, we didn't state of our state. Or randomly during the week, like if someone's having a weird day or a great day, they might request it and be like, I know it's not a Monday or Friday, but can we do a state of our state check-in? Like I gotta share something. I'm like, sure, like let's go. And you're always allowed to pass. And I always tell my kiddos, I'm like, look, no matter how you're feeling, you're exactly where you need to be. And we talk about how checking in with each other is a way for us to like self-assess so that we can strategize and set boundaries, or fill our cups or empty our cups, depending on where we're at, and understand where the class community is coming from. Because that way they can, if you're having a cheese fry day or Chicky and Pete's fry day, for anyone from Philly, if you're listening, you're having a great day. So like you might have to hold up those people who are soggy cold cheese fries and like check in with them, or give them a little space. And then it helps me navigate how to go about the room. And we do a lot of breathing. I'm a drama teacher, so I literally do teach yoga to my drama students.
Yes.
Every Saturday morning rehearsal, we have a yoga practice, a little mini breath work, um, and
Right.
like journaling, check-in exercises. And I have my students set intentions. So I start off in the beginning and like model, and then we rotate throughout the cast, and the cast gets to set the intention for rehearsal that day or for a performance, pending where we are. So they learn how to ground the group down in a grounding, like 3 breaths, how to set the intention for rehearsal, like what do we want together as a community to accomplish, and how can we breathe into that energy of the space.
Oh,
Yeah, actually, we got adjudicated by Paper Ball Playhouse the past 2 years, which is a professional theater in North Jersey, right outside of New York City. And one of the adjudicators said, and this was like, I was like, I've made it, because we get feedback too, like the adults. So as the director, my feedback was, I can tell this cast does yoga.
that's
I
amazing.
was like, I've made it.
That's
Um,
so great.
but what it's funny because at first the kids who are new to me are like, why are we breathing? Why are we
Oh,
talking
what
about
is,
our feelings? Like, can we just like get a worksheet or something? Or can you just
yeah.
post something on campus? But then they're like begging for it. They were like, can we do yoga today?
I was just gonna say, I think it's such an incredible mix of like being a yoga instructor, but also being a teacher and teaching them how these things. I think, there's a crisis, I think, with mental health, and we weren't taught those things. And so to
No.
be able to learn that as a young adult in high school is so critical. I just like, and I would have laughed too if a teacher came and said, like, what is this?
Yeah,
Like,
it's silly. But then the silliness and the playfulness like
yes,
helps because
yes.
the more we become adults, the less we imagine, and it helps us like untap that imaginative, joyful, playful energy.
Yeah.
um yeah, and I lead professional developments too for educators on how to take some of these fun little strategies, even if you're not a yoga instructor, like
Uh,
grab and go activities that you can turnkey in your classroom. So that was something I started to get really into the past like 3 years when we switched to digital learning, then hybrid, and then back in person, because obviously everyone was a hot mess.
yes, 100%.
And
Yeah.
so we needed to check in and make sure we were all okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, so if there are any educators listening, you never know, or anyone in education, reach out, ChristinaCaldwellYoga.com. I have some really fun PDs and activities if you need help on how to bring mindfulness into your classroom.
Yeah. I just think I think it's amazing and lacking in society with technology now and stuff like that. So teaching kids at that age is so critical and important for, and just the checking in on each other and building community like that, I think is so amazing. I'm like, yeah.
What's
Yeah.
really interesting too is there are a lot of activities I'll do like with my students, but also on my yoga retreats. And so it's so interesting to see how adults love it too. Like it doesn't really matter your age.
No, nope.
All you need is an open
No.
mindset.
Yep. And I think too, at least for us in our society and stuff, it's a lot like suck it up, suck it up. No one's checking in on you. No one's being like, how was your day? It's just like moving to the next thing, move to the next class. So that's why as adults, it's so nice to have a check-in too with like, wait, how am I doing today? Like we don't have to think about it. And so it definitely makes sense. And yet, can you talk a little bit more about your retreats? When did you kick off doing that? And yeah, love to hear
Yeah.
more.
So I started leading yoga retreats pretty early after becoming certified. My first yoga retreat was in 2019. And so at that point, I had only been teaching yoga like a year and a half. And it was funny because I had on my vision board that I wanted to start leading yoga retreats. And I had like a 5-year plan. So I was
Yep.
like, oh, I'm like, let me get grounded in like teaching in studio before I start planning these and da da da. But then a retreat happened to fall into my lap at kind of the last second. Like it was only 2 months before the retreat. One of my close friends from Penn State, she started her own yoga retreat business, and a yoga instructor she'd been working with couldn't do it at the last second. And she ended up asking me. And it was one of those things where you're like, of course, you get like imposter syndrome for a brief moment where you're like, wait, like I knew I wanted to do this, but now
Yeah.
already, are we sure? But, universe is playful and silly like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
She's going to be like, hey, if you're ready, I'm going to throw you an opportunity. So you want to pounce on it, or you want to twiddle your thumbs and wait, assume something else is going to come by later. So I ended up jumping on the opportunity, of course, as a person who loves to travel, loves to human connect, and loves to lead life altering experiences. I just jumped on it. And that first retreat was a huge pivotal point for me as a yoga instructor. It really gave me the courage to be like, yes, I can do this. I can do this with other companies. I can do this on my own. I can make these the way I want them to pan out for everyone leaving the retreat. So when I plan a yoga retreat, I look at the environment where we're going to be,
Yep.
because I think that sense of wanderlust and adventure oftentimes can dictate and influence what the yoga client coming is going to experience. And so that's where I get my theme from. Like I start from the goal of how I want everyone to leave feeling.
Yep.
And so in Croatia, my first retreat, we sailed on a yacht. And so I used water as the inspiration. And so that retreat's end goal was transformation, because water can take all forms and shapes. Plus, when you're sailing, you have to be adaptable because you're going with the elements and the wind and the tides, and and if you can like drop anchor somewhere. And then from there, I work backwards, and each day, like our sequencing and our theming and whatever peak posture we're working on to that eventual end goal theme. In Kenya, our theme was manifestation, because why not feel vastly abundant and tap into your power when you're on safari watching a lioness with her kill or her cubs, or watching baby elephants eating acacia trees.
That must have been incredible.
Honestly, hey, like Nat Geo Wild in real life. I'm a big Nat Geo fan. I have been since like I was a kid and could only catch animal shows on PBS, right? So I couldn't even believe it. I was like, wait, but they're right there. And when we stayed at this beautiful ecotourism lodge where we weren't actually staying in a national park. And so we were staying in this like conservation area where the only way to see the animals was if you were staying at the lodge. So our yoga retreat had the animals all to ourselves, which I didn't realize that was unique. A few people who came had gone on safaris before. And I was like, skirt, you've done this again? I was like, that's insane. I'm going to be that kind of person who does multiple safaris in a lifetime. I love you. I love that lifestyle.
Yes.
Right. But they were saying like on a lot of their other drives, there were just safari cars everywhere because they're at the national parks. And they were like, this is incredible that we're the only ones here.
Yes.
So we had the animals all to ourselves, and they were like right outside our door. Like that was the other thing I couldn't believe. The first night hearing like lion roars and an elephant falling into the river outside of our banda.
Yeah.
And the first night, it was like Christmas Eve for me as a kid. I was like, oh my God, I hear the animals. I get to see them tomorrow. But also I heard that they sound really close.
Yeah, like I'm a little nervous. Can they get through that hut over there?
But it was great. I mean, after the first night, I like understood and got so used to it. And then I was loving it. It's like when you, like in Costa Rica, we were sleeping in the jungle. So you wake up to the howler monkeys at 5 a.m., sometimes 4:30, depending how fast you're feeling. So it just felt so good to be so immersed and in tune with nature and with new friends from all over the globe. And then this.
So sorry. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, for people who've never been on a retreat, what's a retreat like? Like, what does a typical day look like? And I know that's going to depend drastically on where you are, but is it yoga all day long? Is it?
It depends on the retreat. So the retreats I lead, instead of it being yoga all day long, there's usually 2 yoga practices a day, morning and evening. Morning more physical based, evening more either restorative or more like meditation and breath work.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones I've led, they've always been almost like an excursion or experience based. So Croatia was all about the sailing, Kenya all about the animals, Costa Rica all about surfing. So in that in between time, we're like fully being immersed in the environment that we're staying in, with the idea too that there is space for downtime. So on safari, we're like, going on game drives in and the schedule had to change slightly in Kenya because obviously you're going when the animals are out and they come out sunrise and sunset. So I moved yoga around. Normally we'd yoga a little earlier, but I was like, no, animals first, yoga after. But yeah, so trying offering time for those like immersive, adventurous experiences in between, but then also ample time for downtime in the afternoon, just so that like you can unwind. There are retreats though that are way more just all about the yoga. So if you're like, I just want to go and move and then plop and hang by the pool, like that's always an option too. But I like to offer a lot of choice. And I always tell people right at the start of our retreat, when we do our opening circle and orientation, that you don't have to do anything on this retreat you don't want to do. Like, this is your experience. This is your adventure, your vacation. If you need a break, if you need a day to sleep in, if you want to go have a cocktail at sunset instead of doing breath work, like whatever it is, if you want to go read your book and be away from the group, there's nothing you ever have to do. There's nothing you ever have to share. This is your space to tap into. And try to make sure too for the group that like that is the communal yes we're saying. Like, we're going to respect everyone's space and support that. Like, if someone is choosing not to attend something, all well and good. So I can't speak to how other yoga instructors, and I like to think of myself more of as a curator, to be honest, when I lead a retreat, because it's not just about the yoga. It's like about the full immersion of the experience of adventuring abroad and with them. But making sure everyone has that permission to adapt and make themselves feel good. Because it is a lot of travel, and depending, like when we went to Africa, I mean, most people had taken almost like, so for some people, 2 days to get there, depending on where they're coming from. So
it's not easy.
Everyone who came from Europe was like, I'm ready to roll. Everyone who came from this side of the world, we're like, we're so tired. Actually, this week last year, I was in Kenya. So on my phone, all the memories, right, keep popping up. Oh my God, giraffes.
Yes. Like, I mean, I love Costa Rica, but it would be nice.
No, but Costa Rica too that was my 4th time there, but my first time in the Nicoya Peninsula. So to share my love of surfing too with people who have never surfed brought me so much joy. I started surfing when I turned 30. So it was really cool and almost everyone on the retreat was a beginner. And we worked with surf coaches, my co-lead Nicole and I. We had surf coaches that we had met in Pavones on a surf trip we took, just the 2 of us, a few years ago. And we had such an incredible experience that I was like, oh my God, my surf coach Joel is amazing. Like, everyone needs to work with him. Let's literally plan a retreat, bring Joel on. And so he can share what he's just taught me. And
that's incredible.
He's so yoga minded and so present and adaptable and supportive. Like, he's not the kind of coach that's going to be really authoritative. He's very much more like loving and nurturing. I was like, this is the energy I would like to put out there.
100%, because it can be intimidating to try and learn all these things. You could be a beginner yoga, beginner. Oh my God, my Massachusetts accent. I don't know where that came from, but beginner at surfing as well. And so,
And we just, it's so magical the first time you pop up and stand on a board. It's like no other feeling I can think of. I mean, it's like you're dancing on water, you feel divine when it happens.
Yes.
Even if it's for 3 seconds, it's like the best, most
Yeah.
euphoric 3 seconds of your life. So I
Yep.
just really wanted to share that energy. And so,
Yeah.
and our theme for that retreat was wild joy. So tapping into that inner child and playing and being the
Yes.
explorer and the optimist and and
Yep.
bringing some of that energy back into your lives at home.
Where can people find out about your retreats? And we'll list everything too in the show notes, but
Amazing. Thank you.
yeah.
ChristinaCaldwellYoga.com. And I actually, my next retreat will be more local. And by local, I mean local for people on the East Coast. I've never done a retreat in the States. Like I was like,
Wow.
ever. I keep
Yeah.
going so far out. And I
Yeah.
got a lot of requests this last time, like, hey, when are you going to do in the States? Let me know.
Yes.
I
Okay.
was like, that sounds nice to plan and easier logistically. So I'm looking at a spot actually in Vermont this month. So I should have more info after that trip on my website. But if you're interested, I always do an early bird discount. Like if you want to put your deposit down and just save your spot, it's always 10% off if you book early before I put it out there. And I have a feeling this retreat will sell really fast because it's
Yeah.
very close to a lot of my clients in the Northeast.
Yes.
And now I'm to the point where I've been getting a lot of repeaters too, which I love.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's so incredible. Well, you had such an amazing journey and everything. What's your biggest piece of advice for people in life, on their healing journey, or just in general?
I love that.
Mhm.
That's a really broad question. Let me think about that for one
It
moment.
is. It means so much to different people. That's why.
I know. I love that question. My advice is to trust in you. I say something a lot in class, which is break away from what was to become who you've been all along.
Yep.
We put so much pressure and society puts so much pressure on us to act a certain way, to take on a certain role, to wear all these ridiculous hats. I like to think my hats, though, are top hats and sparkly, but still.
Exactly.
But still, there are all these labels put on us. And so break away from that.
Yeah.
Your inner light and connection,
Mhm.
the constant you, your essence, it's always here.
Yep.
And so when you need to tap into that energy, give yourself the space to do so.
Yep.
Give yourself to set a boundary. And that boundary can be something so simple as I'm going to take 10 minutes of quiet time with my coffee before my kids wake up, or I'm going to
Yep.
take my dog on an extra long walk and listen to my
Yep.
favorite podcast so that I can jive with my inner self. I think that a lot of people feel intimidated by tapping into their best life because there's so much lifing. Well,
Yes.
y'all, it's always going to be lifing. And
Yes.
you have
I like that. Yeah.
glorious,
Yep.
like dance on this earth. And so
Mhm.
why not jive with the best version of you?
Yep.
So what societal norms do you need to let go of
Yep.
to be who you've been all along?
Yep. I think
And
that's amazing. Yeah.
yeah, let go of that and just
Yep.
in. I'm
And
writing a
just
book about that. It's not done. I have 75% of the manuscript done, but one
that's
day when we get there and I
that's
get
great. Yeah, that's great. Because I feel like people just get in their daily grind and it's just like go, go, go. And nobody stops to think about like, well, who am I? What do I actually want to do? Um it's actually hard to even know how to do that for some people. So myself included. So yeah.
the thing is too, like you don't have to know what you want to do, but
Yeah.
why don't you create space for you to create, to
Yeah.
have some joy in your life so that
Yeah.
the Elizabeth Gilbert calls it the big magic, so that the big magic just like comes to you. Like,
Yeah.
where do you feel most creative and joyful? And you need to go there when
Yep.
you need to let go of those labels and norms that are bringing you down. Maybe it's
Yep.
going for a run, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's like in
Yes.
the sand, going for a hike,
Yep.
maybe reading. I don't know, whatever lights you the beep up. I don't know if I'm allowed to say curse words on this
Yes.
podcast.
On here, it's fine.
Okay, cool. Whatever lights you the fuck up, go
Yes.
unapologetically,
Yes.
so that you can start to tap into your inner desires,
Yep.
because that has nothing to do with our egos and our labels. That has to do with our inner purpose, our dharma. And the only way to find that is to go on those joyful, playful adventures, and then it'll start to come to you.
Yep. No, that makes so much sense. And it's just, I don't know. Yeah. I think that's amazing advice and something we all need to hear. And like changing your life and trying to think of what you want and stuff like that doesn't take huge moves. I think you may just find the space for yourself, whether it's the long walks or hiking, wherever it is. Yeah.
Totally. Like, I think there's this misconceived notion that you have to like quit your job and move to a remote location and live off coconuts. Like, don't get me wrong, I did have a year like that, and it was really life altering.
Yeah.
Talk to me. But you don't also have to do that. Like, you
Yeah.
can find that connection even in your everyday routine. There are still many miracles friends right
Yep.
before you, but you're not going to see them unless you're like bringing awareness to you and
Yep.
your inner desires, and holding space for you.
Yep. I think that's 100%. Yeah. I love that. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you did want to mention today?
I would just say, friends listening, first, thank you for taking time to listen and take some time for you,
Yes.
and spread a little light and a little joy today. And I just want to share that gratitude and that thanks. And so in your daily life today, as you're going through the motions of everything happening out there, because we know there's
Yep.
a lot, what brings you gratitude right now, or what brings you joy, and go out and celebrate it. Because the more you can start tapping into that energy, the more that energy is going to follow, and the more that energy is going to be abundantly present for all of us. It always is. It's just, are you ready to tap in?
Yep.
The stream of well-being always here. So whenever you're ready to dive in,
Yep.
we'll be dancing and treading water
Yeah.
in it.
Yes, I love it.
With body glitter.
Yeah, with the glitter and top hats.
I'm going to the Sam Smith concert tonight unexpectedly, and I was like, oh my God, I have no body glitter in the house.
That's amazing.
Can I Amazon Prime it in one night?
Yeah. Same day, please.
Today, body glitter, I can get it tomorrow. I was like, that doesn't
Yeah.
help me.
That's amazing.
Oh my God,
You
so
have a
silly.
blast. Yeah. But thank you so much for just being you, bringing your sparkle and energy. And yeah, no, I'm super excited to have you and to meet you and get your message out. So
Amazing. Thank you. And friends, if you want to practice with me online, if you don't live in the Jersey area, send me a DM or follow me on Instagram at Christina Caldwell Yoga. I'm doing a pop-up summer series right now,
cool.
where for live classes. There's 3 more left. I just taught one this morning. It's 8:15 East Coast time, Wednesday mornings, and you can tap it on Zoom. I also record every single class I've ever taken. So if you want to practice with me on demand on the replay, you can do that on my website. I have over 150 videos on there and all modalities of yoga. And if you're looking to retreat with new friends,
Yes.
I would love to hold space for you. We've had so many great groups on our past retreats. And so next one will be local, be Vermont, but then we're going big again.
Yes.
And next one. So if you're looking to travel, just reach out. And if you can't hop on mine, I have a lot of yoga instructor friends that lead retreats. So happy to send you in the right direction too.
That's so amazing. And yes, just thank you so much. I'm super excited. I'm going to be joining some of those.
Please. Yes and yes.
Thank you so much, Christina.
You're welcome. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much for taking another holistic view of your health with us. I hope you've really enjoyed today's discussion, and as always, take control of your own wellness journey by exploring the practitioners and modalities available near you or on our directory at www.holistichealthcollab.com. Don't forget to subscribe here so you don't miss an episode, and you can also find more holistic health tidbits at Holistic Health Collab on Instagram. Please leave a rating and review to help us reach more people that might need to hear this information. If you have any questions about today's show or any ideas for future episodes, or if you just want to reach out, you can contact me directly, Kate Maslowski, at kate@holistichealthcollab.com. You can just put podcast in your subject line. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.